This is Eugene from LearnDialect.sg, bringing you the third episode of our special series of Cantonese How Do You Say podcast. Well, do you travel frequently to Hong Kong? Have you noticed that the Cantonese used in Hong Kong and Singapore may be different? Now, our guest speaker Eric Chow is from Hong Kong, but he has been living in Singapore for many years. So I thought he is the best person to ask about the differences between the Singapore and Hong Kong Cantonese. I learned lots from him, so you shouldn't miss this out too. Alright, Eric, we were talking about the myths of learning Cantonese previously. So we debunked the myth that Cantonese is exactly the same everywhere. And given that you have experience with both Singapore and Hong Kong Cantonese, I have some questions that I really like your help in answering. Specifically, how did you learn Cantonese when you were growing up in Hong Kong? Any tips?
Well, firstly, it is 24/7 Cantonese almost. When you wake up in the morning, you will hear your parents talking. You go to school, your school friends will be talking. Your school teachers will be talking, all in Cantonese. And even when you read your textbook for Chinese subject, the Chinese characters are pronounced in Cantonese. So that's basically how we learn it. And when you go home from school, you switch on the TV, Cantonese programs.
The TVB dramas.
Not only that, even cartoons, Popeye, things like Ultraman. Ultraman is in Cantonese, so you see them fighting and shouting in Cantonese. Yeah, and at night, of course, you have the news, you have the movies, English movies dubbed in Cantonese. So everything.
Right.
Yeah, so
Okay.
24/7.
Thereafter, when you moved to Singapore, did you notice a difference between Singapore and Hong Kong Cantonese? Are there any funny or interesting conversations or miscommunications due to all these differences?
There were a few occasions I misunderstood my son.
Right.
I asked him, have you finished your homework? You know, to parents, homework is a big thing. All right. And to the children, it's a different thing.
Right.
So he replied me, 做咗 in Cantonese, which I should have been more appreciative. Yeah, because at least he was trying. I could understand him, but when I was in a rush, I just want to make sure he has done his homework. I became irritated when I heard him saying 做咗 because 做咗, the way you reply is a very curt reply. It's something like you feel irritated, you are impatient when you are replying.
Okay.
So he got reprimanded by me, but after sitting down, after cooling down, I felt that okay, there's nothing wrong with what he was saying. 做咗, okay, in Mandarin is 做了. I know for him, he was literally translating his Mandarin into Cantonese, substituting the sentence structures and the words, characters into Cantonese. Nothing wrong with that. I mean, to him, it's really nothing wrong. It's logical for him.
Right.
But for me as a listener, because I grew up in a different culture, for that, I will take it as you are not being patient with me. So I
You
realized that I
reprimanded him.
reprimanded him unnecessarily.
So how would you expect somebody to respond in a polite manner?
Okay, perhaps 做咗了. And I often realize that in Hong Kong Cantonese, you will end a sentence with a word which is not exactly meaningful. 做咗了, 食咗了, 得未啊? The word because if let's say example 得未啊 and 得未 can say something about the frame of mind of the person speaking it. Okay, example 得未 can indicate the person being a little bit impatient, is getting annoyed, is about to explode. 得未啊 is more mild. Okay, it may still mean that the person is getting frustrated with you,
Okay.
or he is not really frustrated with you. Yeah, so the last word,
The last particle.
the last particle, and this is the tricky part in Cantonese.
Right.
Okay.
So I think to relate to our Singapore listeners, it's more like our Singlish. There's a difference between lay, law, la, la. Those kind of the very subtle differences would make a difference in the meaning that we're trying to convey in a sentence.
Yes, exactly. Especially you grew up learning Mandarin, and you try to substitute the pronunciation word for word, and you just say 吃了, 做了. You just substitute with a Cantonese pronunciation, it can end up as misunderstanding.
Okay, so that's something for us to take note of.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah,
anything
I have
else to
something
add?
to add. When I first moved here, I saw a lot of differences. But over the years, I think I have assimilated to the extent that sometimes when I have friends coming from Hong Kong, I have to pause and figure out how I should talk to them appropriately so that they can understand me. So to that extent, just quote one example. At one point of time, doing some trading, the traders like to speak to me in their Singapore-style Cantonese. And there were a few occasions initially when I replied them in Hong Kong Cantonese, and they sort of corrected me. Yeah. Example, the certain shares is trading at $1.20. All right. And they asked me to help them buy. 192 example.
So what does 192 mean?
192 is a Singapore Cantonese version of $1.20. Okay, but cow it actually derived from, if I'm not wrong, Hokkien.
Oh, I think I know what you're talking about. Cow as in call.
Yes, right. 節課
Yes.
能格. But for me, I said it as 過二. And they thought I was talking about 角二. 角 means 10 cents. So the person misunderstood as 12 cents.
Right.
一角二, you know what I mean?
Yes.
But to me, 過二 means in Hong Kong, $1.20. Yeah.
So 一個個個.
Yes, 一個個個.
Okay.
過二. 過二銀錢, right? For example, we normally say in this way. So I immediately corrected myself and followed their style. Friends from Hong Kong, when they visit Singapore, I very often have to be careful with what I'm saying so that I don't create misunderstanding. Right.
Okay. So very big difference, especially if you're trading between 12 cents and $1.20. It's a 10 times difference. So apart from this 溝兒 and 過兒, what are some of the slangs that locals in Singapore and Hong Kong use differently?
Okay. One such difference came to mind instantly. Yeah. Many years ago, I have a friend. We were playing card games. Okay. Someone was cheating, and one of my friends was shouted, 你玩臭㗎. To me, the phrase 玩臭 is not normally in my vocabulary. 玩臭 in Hong Kong means you're being tricked, you're being trashed, you're being fooled big time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just to clarify, in our local terms, 玩臭 in English it means to play dirty. In Mandarin it means 玩臭. So I guess Eric's friend that just say 你玩臭, it means you play dirty. It's probably a Singapore Cantonese trying to express his displeasure with other party trying to cheat during the card game. Is that right, Eric?
Yes, exactly.
Let's say in Hong Kong, if you want to accuse somebody of playing cheat, right, how would you say it then?
你出千或者係你奸茅. This is exactly how you would say it in Hong Kong.
So it's either 出千 or 奸茅.
More frequently, it would be called 奸茅.
Versus the Singapore's version of 你玩臭.
Yes.
I think the conclusion essentially is that Singapore's context, when you try to say somebody is cheating in a poker game or a game of cards, then you say 你玩臭. But then in Hong Kong's context, if somebody is accusing somebody else of cheating, then you'll say 你奸茅 or 你出千. Would that be correct?
Yes.
So that would be some of the slangs that is used differently between Singapore and Hong Kong then. So upon listening, are you able to tell whether a Cantonese speaker is from Hong Kong, Malaysia, Vietnam, or Singapore?
Okay, Hong Kong definitely. There's no doubt about it. Singapore and Malaysia, the differences are very mild. We have to listen a bit more to figure it out. Okay, but generally I would say people in Malaysia, even the young people, people in their 20s, are quite proficient in Cantonese. So if someone speak in Cantonese and look at the person, if the person is a young person, more or less you may think he is from Malaysia. Yeah. Another difference I can tell from the two, when a Malaysian speaks Cantonese, somehow he speaks like speaking Malay. I'm not too sure whether it is influenced by the usage of Malay in their everyday language.
Right.
And I believe so.
Okay.
So it sounds a bit like Malay. But for Singapore, I will say the way they speak Cantonese is influenced by other dialects. Yeah, by Kian or Teochew. I'm not saying that those from Malaysia are not influenced, but somehow you can tell that it has some kind of Malay influence.
Okay. I read online, or I saw online before, one example that I recall is that they tend to mix Malay words inside. So, for example, when they say everything, how much is everything?
Suma.
Yeah, they'll say sum.
Oh yes, and that's very big difference between Singapore Cantonese and Malaysian Cantonese.
Mm-hmm. Let's say Malaysians use suma. What is the Singaporean equivalent?
Okay, I have heard people saying chunbo.
Mm.
The older generation may speak suma. Okay, the same as roti. The older generation of Singaporeans will call bread roti more often than younger people. So this is something I observe.
Right.
In Malaysia, it's very obvious roti, lokai, my roti, and they always like to use the word liu. 你去邊度撩啊?
What
For
does liu mean?
liu is actually 玩.
嗯
去邊度玩? Where you going to
Play.
Enjoy yourself or play? Yeah.
Okay. So liu would be used by Malaysians. Is that what you're saying?
They are used in Singapore and Malaysia, but increasingly as the population in Singapore speaking dialect is dropping, you don't see it so often. So when someone is to say the word liu, there is a higher tendency the person is from Malaysia. Yeah.
Okay. And then how do the Hong Kong people say it then?
你喺邊度玩啊?
去邊度玩?
Ah.
Well, with Cantonese having so many variations, etc., if we just focus on just learning Cantonese alone, what do you think are some of the more challenging tones? You know, we talked about either 6, 9, or 12 tones, and you personally think that it's more for the 9 tones, right? So what do you think are some of the more challenging tones to pronounce for Singaporeans who are just beginning to learn Cantonese?
Okay, so there are a few words in particular which I have seen in Malaysians or Singaporeans
Right.
who have difficulty in pronouncing
Okay.
accurately. First word is 強. The word 強, strong.
Okay.
Yeah, the most famous vocab will be 小強, the cockroach.
Okay.
But I have listened to so many people in Singapore, even Malaysia, they pronounce it in 小強. So it is a very strong indication that it is heavily influenced by dialect. Okay, because in Hokkien, if I'm correct, 強 is pronounced as kiang.
Okay.
So you have the very strong QI tone in the front.
The sound of the QI.
The sound of the QI. And the phrase 緊張. Okay, you realize that the 張 and the 強, they pronounce quite similarly, right? In Singapore and in Malaysia as well, I hear people pronounce it as 緊張. 張. So 張 is stretched. Yeah, so as 強, right, stretched. A third example would be a crab. Okay, crab in Cantonese is pronounced as 蟹. 蟹.
Okay.
And my Singapore friends pronounce it in such a way that I find that I must correct them in order to avoid any kind of confusion when they go to Hong Kong.
Okay.
Right, and I do not want to say here, okay, these are some of the tones that
we got to share this. We got to share. I think a lot of our listeners will also be going to Hong Kong quite a bit. So it's for their benefit. I have a feeling that it's going towards the
body part.
Your body parts, but just for the share so that everybody can learn from it. So in Singapore, crab would be pronounced as hai. Is that right?
No, in Hong Kong it is pronounced as hai.
Okay.
But people in Singapore can end up pronouncing it as. Are you sure you want me to say it?
Yes, please. We are all ears.
Hai.
Hai.
Hai. And for the person who listen to you, who is not aware of where you're coming from, he can interpret as an insult. Okay, and referring to a body parts and vulgar language. And in Hong Kong nowadays, you have got to watch out of what you are talking.
Yes.
And who you are talking to. Imagine you talk to Amada, then you have to be careful. Oh, yes, Mada is one word which can tell you are either from this part of the world or from Hong Kong. Yeah, Mada, so, people referring to as Mada.
Mada, in our case, we refer to police people.
Right.
But in Hong Kong, they use 警察.
警察.
Yes. I see. All right, so just remember to pronounce crab properly. It will be hai, right, and not.
Don't say it with a high pitched tone.
Don't say it with a high pitched tone.
Right.
Okay, so keep to the high tone. Okay, so that would be some of the things to look out for in the pronunciations in terms of the consonants, vowels, as well as the tones. All right, that's very good. Thank you, Eric, for sharing with us all these wonderful experiences, how to differentiate in between Singapore and other countries' Cantonese, difference or the importance of pronouncing certain tones correctly so that you don't get misunderstood for swearing, right? Or when you're asking for crab in Hong Kong. So how's it going? We are at the halfway mark of this special 6-part series of our Cantonese How Do You Say podcast. For the next 3 episodes, be prepared to say it like you own it. Yes, we are going to help you sound like pro when you speak Cantonese. You'll learn to ask some really neat Cantonese questions to get to know someone or even asking someone out for a date. Stay with us. This is Eugene from LearnDialect.sg, and we'll speak again in the next episode.